They are simple because they all tell a similar story, the depiction of the birth of Jesus under humble circumstances. They are amazing because they are made in such a tremendous variety of styles and materials and levels of sophistication in a great many countries of the world. Because of this variety, they are fascinating to look at, and for some enthusiasts, the urge to collect nativities or improve their nativities every year is almost irresistible. How did all this begin? It began in Europe. Christianity took root, grew, and flowered. Francis of Assisi on Christmas Eve in 1223 in the small Italian village of Greccio. St. Francis's tableau featured live animals and had a lasting impact. To this day, Italians love nativities, and an entire street in Naples is devoted to selling them. There are clubs of men in Italy today devoted to improving their personal nativities, and they meet all year long. The First Baptist Church on Old Pecos Trail in Santa Fe creates a live nativity for one weekend each December, the direct descendant of the first one by St. Francis. I suspect this live nativity will not occur this year because of the pandemic.
It is.
It is.
Drive-through.
It's on. Ooh.
They're doing a drive-through.
Just 3 years from now, in 2023, it will be the 800th anniversary of the first nativity. Whoops. How did I go back? By what St. Francis created. I'll tell you more about that anniversary in a few minutes. One New Mexico pueblo creates a live nativity of sorts. That pueblo is Jemez. They call it Bethlehem. A married couple allows their home to become transformed to hold the infant from Christmas Eve to Epiphany. I have been to many Bethlehems at Jemez Pueblo. Oops, how can I go back? I can't go back.
No.
Oh dear. These are my good friends. Those were my good friends, Pat and Priscilla Latoya, when they were Mary and Joseph of Jemez Pueblo. During the medieval times, nativity plays were written and performed in Europe, depicting various scenes from the nativity story. Medieval Spanish plays were useful for priests in Spain's remote colony to teach illiterate natives whom the Spanish hoped to convert to Christianity, as well as to entertain illiterate colonists. Some of these nativity plays are still performed today. In New Mexico, they are called Las Posadas, Los Pastores, and Los Tres Reyes Magos. An amateur group from a church in Belen, New Mexico, performed Los Pastores at the St. Francis. These photographs are going too fast.
Oh, it's your show, so.
Ah, yes, well, this is going to be quick. The nativity you're seeing here is from Germany. It's Neapolitan, the Naples, and they do extra scenes and they have miniatures in the scenes. So that created a demand for more scenes and more miniatures. And there are the custom spread to Spain, and there became a competition between families and churches about who could have the fanciest ones. Then in the mid 20th century, there was an exhibition at 2009 or 1961 and 1962 of Alexander Girard's famous nativity collection. One was in St. Louis, I think, and one was in Santa Fe. That created a lot of collectors, and it caused a lot of people to be interested in nativities. Alexander Girard loved nativities, and he asked Sally Wagner, and his exhibit, his collection is on exhibit in the Museum of International Folk Art. And he asked Sally Wagner, a friend of his who had a lot of Indian friends, he asked her to ask her Indian friends to start making nativities. And so that's how it happened. This is Sally Wagner in her own home, and she was the one that nativities to begin. So she first asked a family at Tesuque Pueblo, and that was the Manuel Vigil family. And now there are lots of Manuel Vigil nativities down there. In 2005, I hosted a convention of nativity collectors in Santa Fe, which Charlie Carrillo did the logo for that. That's an original watercolor by Charlie Carrillo. And then later, I hosted, with Kent and Joe's help, another biennial nativity of Friends of the Creche. And that was in last November. That was the logo for the scene from that one. And 7 people came from Europe to come to this convention. And it ended with a tour of homes that had nativity collections in Santa Fe, and including Kent and Joe's and Carol Ann's. Carol Ann will be the next one to speak. So the first family in Tesuque to make nativities was the Manuel Vigil family. And they're dressed like Pueblo Indians. That Joseph has a Pendleton blanket wrapped around his hips, and Mary has a manta. And this nativity is owned by a Jewish couple. They were already collecting pottery, but when they fell in love with the figures from the Vigil family, they started collecting nativities as well. These are the shepherds bringing their gifts. They're just amazingly detailed, and the Pendleton blankets are around their hips. And there are also some animals. I think in the next slide might be animals. No, it doesn't work. So where are you? Here are some more wise men bringing gifts. Internet connection is unstable.
Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Anyway, the figures are charming and very, very collectible. I like the animals. They should be the next slide. I thought I could control them. Here are the animals. Aren't they sweet? So all of this belongs to that one collection of the Jewish couple that's right here in Santa Fe. They're just precious. So now there are shops that sell nativities made in Pueblo, Navajo, Spanish, and Anglo communities. And here's one by the Vigil family that's in the church at Cristo Rey. They commissioned it. And the wife, Vicente Vigil, made the clothing for this nativity and put hair on the figures. And the joke going around the Pueblo was that there was not a dog in the Pueblo that had not been clipped for hair for this nativity. I believe it's still in existence and on display. Here's one from Taos Pueblo, and I sold one of these to a man, an Episcopal priest in Hong Kong, and this is now on display, or one like it, is on display in the Cathedral of St. John in Singapore right now. It's got the gifts of bread, oven bread, chilies, and corn. Here's one. This is a Navajo one by Harry and Isabel Benali. They're in Sheep Springs, New Mexico. They carve out of wood, and all the features are Navajo. The clothing, the gifts. This is a really nice set. His father was a code talker. This is one by Chris Thomas. Once in a while, a talented artist comes along and makes incredible nativities. Chris is no longer alive, but I sold his work in my shop before he died. And so this is one. He did a great variety of them. They're all different. They're all wonderful. They tend to be small. Some of them can be hung on the wall as well as sitting on the counter. This has Acoma parrots on it. This one is a Navajo Two Gray Hills design, and Mary in the inside. So this is a Navajo theme. Chris was an Indian, but he did other ones. Here's another one that he did of a Mesa Verde look. And cloud design. Really, really nice. This one can only hang on a wall with a round shape, but we did this in early 2020, early 200s, 2000s. That's just a beautiful one. This one is a Pima basket, which I've always liked because Chris's father was Pima. So he used that theme, and the people inside are dressed like Pima Indians. It's remarkable. It looks like a basket, but it's actually carved wood. Again, this would be hard to put on a stand. I guess you could put it on a stand, but it more often hangs on a wall. People that own these once in a while are willing to sell them. This is one of the two Chaco Canyon design, and the figures are inside, all carved differently. There were never two alike of these, and this is just a wonderful one. He once in a while did he even did Northwest Coast ones occasionally. This is one that is for sale right now in my shop, and it's got the animals on the outside clinging to the frame of the Nativity. So if you like that one, it is available in my shop right now. A collector has decided to let it go. So that's a beautiful one.
Same guy, Chris Thomas.
Chris Thomas. And then I think the next one might be mine. So this was inspired by the colonial church of Laguna Pueblo, the Reredos there, and the doors open, and inside are the figures. Chris's mother was from that pueblo. This is larger than most of the other ones. So when the doors are open, there is it inside. So it's just a lovely one, and I will put it on display in my house this Christmas. So inside are Mary and Joseph with the halos and the angels on the pedestals. So anyway, this is one by Luis Tapia. He shows in Spanish Market. He's not known for nativities. He's done this one many years ago, I think in the 70s. And that was in a private collection. The woman that has owned that collection is now living in a nursing home of sorts, and I don't know where this nativity is right now. I would love to find it, but it's very, very nice. It's carved wood. Here's one by Nicholas Otero. Nicholas Otero lives in Los Lunas, New Mexico, and he was asked to make this. I asked him to make it for my book, Nativities of the Southwest. And Nicholas was given a special award by the governor of the state recently for being one of the top artists in the state of New Mexico. It's quite large, and it's just a masterpiece. That's gold leaf on it. Here's one by Monica Sosia Halford. She's in her 80s now. She's been in Spanish Market for many, many years. This is in the museum collection of the Museum of International Folk Art, and there are lights in the little bags. So that's a beautiful, beautiful set. So this one shows a scene from the nativity play, Los Pastores, the Shepherds. This is the lazy shepherd. Convince him to get up, but he won't listen. He's just lazy. That's from the village of Cordova, the carved figures in the chip carved style of Cordova, New Mexico. So this one is Navajo. This is a very large, and the artist is no longer alive. And this is in a private collection in Santa Fe. Just beautiful. The shepherds are bringing their Navajo-style gifts, and the baby looks like it's wrapped in a striped blanket. This artist is no longer alive. This one is mine. It's by George Lopez. Technically, it's not a nativity. Technically, it's a Holy Family, but I've always thought of it as a nativity. And the little animals below, I gathered them and bought them at early Spanish markets over the years. One has the price of 55 cents on it on the bottom, and one has 75 cents. And I've enjoyed it for many years. I added the trees, they're German. This is by Sabanita. She is the niece of George Lopez. She was raised in his home, and she does marvelous nativities. And some of the figures look like the ones in my nativity, and I wonder if she made them. I'll have to ask her next time I see her. I sell her work in my shop now. She's known for these arches of different sorts and the leaves. She's really a sweet woman. Here's one that was done for the Spanish market in the youth category. The youth market, you have to be of Spanish descent, and you have to be mentored by an artist in Spanish market. So this one was from the 70s, I think. We don't know who made it, but we hope to find out someday. It's a lovely, charming set. Oh, she does so neat. And this is by a woman in, yeah, she's untrained. She lives up by Taos, close to Taos.
Turn it off.
What's that? Oh. She took a class. She went to an art class in Taos, and she was told by the teacher, that she had so much talent she shouldn't take that class. This is Wheat Straw Applique. This guy shows in Spanish market. Mel Rivera, I think his name was. And that's Wheat Straw Applique. He's always in Spanish market. You can find him there. It's just a marvelous piece. On a cross, you could hang that on a wall. So this one is a driftwood one. I think this is one that I own myself. This is by David Alvarez, who is no longer alive. His wife, Louise, his widow, Louise, continues to make nativities out of driftwood, but this is by David, and it's in my personal collection. I just love it. It's fairly small to get that out. The angels on top are always pegged in. This is by a woman from Cochiti. She's using the traditional clay slip, Felicita Eustace, and she's no longer alive. This is in my personal collection. That's a reindeer on the left, and the baby is wrapped in soft leather. This one is by Dorina Chinana, and I have her work in my shop right now. She likes to put birds in her walls. So it's Pueblo Indian pottery, and the clay is gathered from the earth, not bought at a store, and formed by hand, and dried and sanded, and then painted, and then fired. It's a really nice set. This one is by Snowflake Flower. Snowflake Flower died in her 90s, maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year. And her style is very recognizable. This is in a private collection. It has praying animals in it. The next one is by Snowflake Flower also, but all the figures in the next one are animals. So this is a nativity made of animals by Snowflake Flower. This is in the same collection as the other one, where the woman is in a nursing home now, and no one knows where this where this nativity is right now. What a shame. But it's got its own charm. This one is from Jemez Pueblo. It's set in a kiva. And to get into the kiva, you climb up the steps and then go down the ladder. This is by Santana Sionia. It includes 3 wise men, a deer, a sheep, a shepherd, and an angel always sits on the top. This was in my personal collection now. It was in my sister's collection, but I have acquired it out of the estate. This one is Navajo, and the wise men in this one are bringing gifts of value on the reservation, that like a bag of salt and a bag of cornmeal. And this is a fairly primitive one, naive, you could say, and it's by a guy on the Navajo on the reservation. It has a charm. This one is Linda Lucero Frawa. She is from Jemez Pueblo. She does different kinds of figures, This one we call the baby is called the Screamer. The other baby she does is called the Burrito, all wrapped up. But this is the Screamer. Sometimes her wise men or Joseph is standing, sometimes he's kneeling. They're always a little bit different, and I just got a new one in my shop. This is a flight into Egypt by Angel Bailon. She is from San Domingo Pueblo. And the flight into Egypt is just another chapter in the story of the Nativity, where it was prudent for Mary and Joseph to get out of there because the king was going to kill all the babies under 3 years of age. So this is a flight into Egypt. You don't see too many San Domingo nativities. This is a beaded one by Sheila, and she's Navajo, and it's unusual. We don't know if Sheila is still alive, but she would take pieces of equipment and bead over them. That's how she could get that three-dimensional look to it. So this is now in a private collection in Santa Fe. We don't see too many Navajo nativities. This one is by, she is famous from Cochiti Pueblo. Can't think of her name right now. But she invented the storyteller figures. And this is a beautiful, beautiful set from Cochiti Pueblo. I think the Museum of International Folk Art has a similar one. This is by David Navarro Cerro in the Spanish colonial style. And their figures are carved out of wood, and then they're painted with various earth pigments. And there's a little bird on the top. David Navarro Cerro did the one nativity that's in the Museum of Santa Maria de la Paz Catholic Community in Santa Fe. This is a Cochiti one that I commissioned from Seferina Ortiz back in the 80s, I think it was. And since that time, Seferina has died, but it has the cloud and rain design on the baby, and it's just really a charming set. I recently sold it to another collector. This is another nativity from Cochiti. It's an angel, and she's holding an angel and the nativity on her lap. This is in a private collection in Denver. Just beautiful. It looks like it might not be the original clay slip. It might be a white substitute for the clay slip because it's a little too white. But it's very nice. This one is from Jemez Pueblo by Esther Cajero, and it has eagle dancers coming in to dance in honor of the baby, and the three wise men are holding Pueblo-style gifts, pots, and so forth. It's a really, really lovely set. And the woman that owned this set is now deceased. So I think the family had kind of a sale of her nativities, and I didn't know about the sale, otherwise I would have got it. This is by Charlie Carrillo. He designed this in the 80s, I think it was, and it was reproduced in the Philippines for several years. And then they moved the production to China and the quality declined. So this reproduction is no longer made, but it's sought after. And sometimes you see it at secondhand stores or estate sales. The doors do open. It's really a famous nativity. This is a colcha embroidery, a Spanish colonial technique of embroidery. And this is done by Gomez. Can't remember her first name, but she gave that to me as a gift. It's on a ball. She's very, very good. I don't know how long you want me to talk. Oh, this is by Louise Ortega. She is the widow of David Alvarez, and this is a magnificent nativity that she made for my book, Nativities of the Southwest. It's got a shepherd and his flock on the left, the wise men above them, two angels pegged into the set, and the nativity in the center of the nativity. Here's another flight into Egypt by her nephew, Angelo LaRouche. And this is a beautiful, beautiful one. The Mary will come off off the donkey, which has a mane. And we haven't seen Angelo for a long time, but I hope he'll come and make things for us again. This is a nativity that my daughter owns. It's from Cochiti. It's by Janice um, Ortiz, sister of Virgil Ortiz. And I have this one for sale in my shop right now. All the figures have the charm of Cochiti pottery, and this one actually has camels, which you don't too often see. One hump and two hump. So this is a pictorial rug, which is Navajo. Pictorial rugs are difficult to make and take a long time to make. And this is a pretty large one. Anyway, it's an ambitious undertaking to do a pictorial rug, Navajo. Stars in the sky. This one got an award in an Indian market in 1990, I think it was, or 99. It's a beautiful one. And I don't know in what collection this is now. Maybe it was in the collection in Denver, but it has a lot of figures and ambitious figures like a horse. My goodness, with a cradle board on the horse. It's just a lovely, lovely set. The shepherd is holding a lamb. I made this one, and this one is out of salt dough. That's how I got my start. And a set like this that I made is in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. That show was in 1975 called Craft Multiples, and it was a national show. And I was lucky to be in that good company. So everything in the show is purchased for the permanent collection. Here's one from Mexico. Mexico, any Catholic country, does a lot of nativities. This is one that was from years and years ago, but they're still being made in this style. And Isukrita Matamores, I think is where it's from. Mm-hmm. But it's just a famous style, just lovely. The birds are pegged in with wire legs, and that looks like a cactus on the right. Here's one from Puebla, New Mexico. This is Mayolica, and it's a more contemporary style. And I think this guy is in the book of Masters of Mexican Folk Art. And this was out of an estate, and I sold it. Just a beautiful set. The animals are so nice. Here's one that I own. This is a wycinanki. Wycinanki is a Polish word for paper cutting, and the nativity is in golden arch, and down below are the wise men. It's quite a large piece. The artist is from Krakow, but she lives in Albuquerque, and she sells other wycinanki, other paper cuts. She's very, very talented. This one is also Polish. It's reverse glass painting. Not too big, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing that you could hang on a wall. The animals at the bottom are charming, and it's got a naivete to it, which is appealing to lovers of folk art. This one is from Czech Republic, and or Slovak. No, this one's from Slovakia. Well, the country that got a divorce. Anyway, this is out of corn husk and wood, and the wise men are opening their gifts, and the shepherd has a debonair hat, and Mary and Joseph have halos, and there's a star. This is another Polish one with chickens on a rafter. It's like many Polish nativities. It's a naive one, a primitive one, but it's very, very charming. And angels are on the roof. So Poland is a good source for international nativities because they're a Catholic country. This is one from Spain, and the shepherd's scene is on the top. And when you store this one, you turn that scene over, and it lays on top of the nativity, and it's just lovely. It's from the collection in Albuquerque, where the woman is no longer alive. So I don't know where this one is right now, but it's classic Spanish. This one is from Portugal. It's Majolica, and just the baby from the set, but it's just a charming nativity. The owner had only one piece of the nativity, just this one. And she has since moved to a nursing home in Arizona. So we don't know where this one is now. This one has a horse, an elephant, and a camel. You see the iconography of wise men on elephants, horses, and camels in Europe. It's not unknown in Europe, but you see it more often in Latin American countries. This particular nativity is from Mexico. I have a German set in the shop that has this is a French Santon set. I own this one myself. This one I got in the hill villages of France years ago. And it's Santon, it's clay with clay hands, clay face, clay figures, but it's covered with cloth material, and the baby can be taken out of Mary's arms and put in her arms. This one is a novelty. It's the Pillsbury Doughboy, and it's on a baking sheet. And so this was given to a nativity collector in Albuquerque. She said it grows on you. Her husband had that commissioned for her when he found a baby Pillsbury Doughboy. Had his niece do the clothing. This is a miniature, and it's on a kitchen match. That's a real kitchen match, and that's pretty small. That artist used to come to the to the International Folk Art Market here in Santa Fe. I don't think he's been lately, but he's one of the past exhibitors in that. So that's a novelty. That's pretty small. Here's another one that's pretty large. This is clay, and this is from Peru. They're wearing Peruvian hats, Peruvian costume, and we had to ship that one. Boy, that was tricky, but I think it got there in time. The angel is playing a Peruvian instrument. I have many more slides, but going at this pace, we'll be here till 5 o'clock. So you can tell me when you want me to stop. Here's another novelty nativity, which has bicycle parts and automobile parts from Guadalajara, Mexico. You see an elephant, a horse, and a camel. This was made in Guadalajara. It's really an amusing set. So,
Susan, I think we'll do about maybe 3 more slides.
3 more sets, okay. Oh, we're back. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's enough. So if you have any questions about any of these sets or any other nativity questions, I'm here to answer the questions.
Oh, great. And so if anybody does have any questions, let's hold them till after Carol Ann's presentation, and feel free to submit them via chat, and we'll make sure to leave some minutes at the end for chatting. Carol Ann, if you want to unmute yourself, I'll be happy to get your slide presentation started.
Okay.
All right.
See her presentation. Can you close?
I think so.
All right.
There. Okay, so now we're back to that. Okay.
Oh. There we go. So, Carol Ann, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I've been a member of Folk Art, Friends of Folk Art, for about 10 years. And for those of you who were in Folk Art for a long time, you might have been over to my house when the lovely Susan O'Neill and myself had an open house for the Friends of Folk Art. And it was a really snowy day. It was about 10 years ago, and I was on a walker because I had my knee surgery about 5 days before. So maybe you've seen 1 or 2 of my nativities. I want to tell you just a little bit about my background. As you can tell from my voice, I'm from New York, and I'm pretty proud of that. And I want to tell you a story about my collections as my point of introduction about me. I was a little or totally embarrassed at the time, but now it's kind of funny. 17 years ago, my son, Brian, toasted Peter, my husband, and I at our wedding reception. He said he was happy for us and more than happy, more than happy. And Mary, if you're listening, could vouch for that. He said, I gift Peter with all my mom's collections. And I will be happy to give you also her to-do list. When I come home every Christmas, she had a long to-do list. So that's, I would say my husband was not very prepared for what he saw the first Christmas. I stripped the house of everything that was movable so I could get my Christmas collections up. And after everything was ready and Peter participated in everything being done, he rested, sighed, and then a few days later had the courage to take a stroll from one room to the other. And what I didn't know until dinner time was that he actually counted all these nativities and said, do you know you have 130 or so nativities? And in that wonder, I thought he was saying, why and how could this have happened to her? And my Christmas, I don't know, it's always a special occasion. And I even have 40 or 50 nativities out right now. And I get great pleasure out of it. And I must say that Peter has participated in this by giving me a series of nativities. He loves shopping at Susan's Christmas shop. And the picture of me is taken at our front door. And it's a nativity from Navajo land. And he purchased it at Susan's shop. I hope to show you, but maybe we don't have time, about a dozen nativities that are among my favorites. So I'll start right now. And if you'd have the first picture ready. Oh, there's one before that. Thank you. This is my first nativity. It was given to me from Grandma, my father's mother, in 1939. And I don't think you'll see many of these around. It's very, very old, as you can tell. And it was bought in Midtown Manhattan at Woolworth's 5 and Dime store. And my grandma, who was widowed and raised 5 kids, she bought this for me, and it was presented to my parents on my first birthday. I imagine many sets were bought at that time and for years later, but I don't think there are too many on display today. I'd like to have a challenge if anyone knows that there's another in existence, and it's 18 pieces. It's made of plaster in Paris, and it probably came from molds. And I think one of those camels was someone gave to me a few years later. It's purely personal why I selected this as my nativity that I wanted to show first. And I am delighted that I carried it through life. And I want to tell you that if you take a look at the baby, Jesus, I must have played with that baby and his crib an awful lot because it's on the point of collapse and the bottom part of the baby Jesus is missing. Next slide. And this, 20 years later, I got this nativity. It was a Hummel nativity from West Germany. And it was given to me for my college graduation. I have no idea why my parents thought of that as a graduation present, but they did. I do know that my mother loved Hummels and she collected them. And they were very popular at that time, have gone out of popularity in the 2000s. This was made in the Goebbels factory. Figures are between 8 and 12 inches. It's quite large with a simple A-frame. I love the coloring and I love the way it looks. It's very peaceful to me. And I want to tell you just a little background about this because the Nazis stopped the manufacture of Hummels at the beginning of the war because they found out that Hummel figures were done by Sister Maria Immaculata Hummel. She was a very talented artist in the Hummel family, and she started out illustrating postcards with her figures. And years later, the porcelain manufacturer Goebel did start to copy her work, and some of her figures were so complex that they were in 40 pieces and had to be joined together. And I don't know if that's true about this particular nativity, but I'm sure it was a challenge to put together. And as I told you, I liked it because of the way it looked and the way it almost felt. I believe Hummels stopped being manufactured in 2005. I looked it up in about 20 years ago, and I found out it was worth about $1,200. So the other day, I also looked it up, and Etsy had it with the stable for $3,900. And then I did a little more browsing and found indeed there are sites out there that put price tags on all the Hummels that have been made. And well, I'm really glad I carried this through my life also. Thank you. Would you go to the next? And that is, I think, a particularly wonderful nativity. If I may say so myself. I found it in a gift shop, an Indian Native American gift shop in Moab, Utah, when I went on vacation in the springtime. It's fairly large, it's very heavy, and it's Native American from the Lakota Indian tribe. You see the scratches on each piece doing illustrative work, and those meticulous scratching on it is what's called secreto, and it's practiced, I have noticed, in Santa Clara. So I haven't ever seen any other Lakota Indian nativity. So I don't know if this special artist, Nick Housley, was one of many people in that tribe who did this kind of art, but I think it's really special. You can tell the three wise men, and actually when we took the picture, it didn't quite get to the right people, but it came with three separate little balls that had representing the gifts. I would love to see more of his work. I would love to read something about the culture of the Lakota Indians, and I hope one of these days I'll take time to really do that. I have only 2 nativity sets where there were gifts, the 3 wise men gifts, and this is one of them. The next one is a little bit like some of Susan's nativities, and I had found the Lakota Indian one in 1991, but this one is by Francis Sueña in 1975. I went with three friends who love to do crafts together, and we decided we wanted to buy not one, but 4 nativity sets from Coach City. And we passed the door of the gal who, Helen Cordero, who made the first storyteller, as was just mentioned. But we said, oh gosh, we only have $100 or less in our pocket, and that would not buy very much in Helen Cordero's work. So we went down the road and we found another shingle that said pottery sold here. And this was Frances's house. And we went in and we said, did she make nativities? And she told us yes. And we said we would like her to make us some. They didn't have to be all exactly the same. And we told her the price range. It had to be under $100 or $100. And she said, come back in a month. And we waited about 2 months. We went back, and guess what? She had one nativity set, and she promised to make the others. And a year later, and 10 trips down to Coach City, we found the 4 nativity sets for each of us. We had gotten them all completed. And from what I hear, everyone is still displaying them. My friends are all alive, and they were delighted with their purchase then, and they still are now. These are small, and there's 12 pieces. And that's what I'll tell you about that, and move right on to the next one. You'll see this is the second of the 3 nativities I'm going to show you. This is from a woman I met at Indian Market, the year that Indian Market was expanded to the DeVarkis Center. I found her at a table, and I bought a storyteller from her. And after I did, I said, do you make nativity sets? And Marie said she did. She was a middle-aged woman who was a student at IAIA, not getting a degree in art, but getting a degree in poetry. Well, Marie and I became friends, and one day she called me and said, I have your nativity set ready. Why don't you come down to see if you like it? And I said, okay. And I said, how about Sunday? And she was, at that time, it was San Juan Pueblo that she was living on. And she was home, of course. I brought my dad down there. He had never been very far away. And going past Espanola was pretty far for him. And it was the first time he had ever met an Indian person. And so we had a good chat. I loved the nativity, and I see the 3 wise men. They did originally have the same feather, but in time, feathers got lost. What I like about this is not only the angel that's in the back there, but also the tiny angel. So this set came with 2 angels. And as you can see, it's not too many pieces, but I love the way the papoose is in Mary's shawl. And I love that tiny little angel hanging down. I finally found an ornament hanger that I could put that on so you could see it. This was made in 1995. And that's what I'll tell you about that. The next nativity is what I call a lantern nativity, because a couple of those guys from India, made in India. It's wood. It's I think it's wood, a light wood. If not, it's made of paper mache. All the shapes are the same, pretty much, except to the woman and Joseph, who has his staff, and I think he's carrying one of the lambs. It's kind of a funny way of representing the carrying of the sheep, and then I don't know whether what are they, horses? I'm not sure what they are, but the baby Jesus is standing on top as I found it in the shop. I found this in San Francisco, and it was 1991. And of course, as you can see, just about all the males have hats on except Joseph. And to the next one is from Nigeria. No, I have not been to Nigeria, but I was teaching for Southern Illinois University on the F4 space. And the last day of class, I was teaching on the weekend program. And the last day in the afternoon, they took a test. And as soon as tests were over, and I collected the papers to go grade, all 27 of them that I had, I did go out shopping a little bit. And I found the shop in Nob Hill, and I think it was 2002, and it was an unsigned set of wonderful wooden pieces, so smoothly sanded, such lovely colored wood, and the blackest of black faces, and the loveliest of lovely animals that, while as smooth as the body of the human figures are, the animals are roughed up and textured. I really enjoyed this because of I didn't know very much about the quality of African nativities, and surely this is one of the best. It's elegant, I'd say. There were 14 pieces. Next. This is what I call my best Guatemalan nativity, and it comes from the 1970s. I didn't document things too well at the time. I took the day and went to, I went down to Santa Fe on a binge shopping after Christmas, and the Guatemalan set, could you go back just one more for a minute? Okay, so this was photographed outdoors, and the photographer, who was a great photographer, she said to me, "This is not Guatemalan. It's a soft clay, and it's an off-white." And she said, "Never saw anything like this." And I said, "Well, that's why I chose this. I have several nativities, including one that Guatemalan nativity that Leslie and Henry Muth, who some of you probably know from their folk art shop years ago, they gave me as a parting gift when they moved to Oregon. However, this is, as I said very clearly to the photographer, it is Guatemalan because every single figure, and that is not true in all my nativity sets, has printed on it, made in Guatemala, stamped on it. So I know that it is Guatemalan, the real thing. Next. I see that's the Irish one. I'm 3/4 Irish and 1/4 German. So I showed you the German one. Now I'm showing you the Irish one. This was on our last trip to Ireland. No, excuse me. Well, it wasn't on the last trip to Ireland. Well, I'm not sure. Let's see if I have a note here to say when it was made. No, I bought it in 2011. It was my 4th trip to Ireland. And my husband had a science meeting in Dublin, and I took him to Galway because I always love Galway, and I found this in a shop in Galway. I'm not sure how it was produced, and it came in a very professional box, so I know it was manufactured. I thought maybe it was a sand painting, but it really does look like stone. And I just love the comparison of the very back that looks for, falling down Gothic, and the Christ child very snug in this cold stone piece, crib. And it is only, it's probably one of my smallest pieces that aren't just three-piece nativities. Next. And I need to say, I was saying all along that this was a Oaxacan nativity. Guess where I bought it? I purchased at the Folk Market Flea. And I didn't have the story on it. And I was accrediting it to being from Oaxaca. And then this morning I looked because I remembered that there was something written on the bottom of the crib. And it's sure enough, it's from a completely different area that is about an hour's drive from Guadalajara. And I like it so much. They're pretty big, not, the most beautiful carving, not the most beautiful painting, but just look at it. It takes command of the scene. And I put it on my living room, my dining room table, and it takes a good amount of space. And I am glad to have it. And I have purchased many nativities from your flea market. Next, I want to share with you a really special nativity. It's in a milk crate, and it's many figures. They started being like 5 to 7 inches tall. When we tried to take this picture, I had that center angel up on top of the nativity as it was when I purchased it, surrounded by 2 geese. And I want to tell you that that is the heaviest milk crate I have ever carried. And maybe I haven't carried too many, but it's an authentic milk crate. And it is completely, the figures are made from, do you know what? Can you tell? They're wrapped in, they're corn husk figures. Now I have had a nativity set I bought in Berea, Kentucky, where they're known for teaching their crafts. And one of the things, what I bought from there is a 3-piece nativity, and that is corn husk. But this is fabulously different, and so well made. The other was well made, but the details in this, and too bad you can't really see that. But Mary and Joseph have their hands outstretched in joy for the coming of the baby. And the animals might even have some embroidery on it, not this one here, but in the front on the left side, but the one in the back. It's just terrific. The donkeys, the geese, everything. I just think it's fascinating. Guess where I found that? I found it at the old flea market by the opera. It was quite expensive for a flea market, but well worth it. I used to have it up high, like I have huge tall ceilings, and I used to have it up high. But this year, it's now sitting on its own table, and I can look at it all the time. So I am very pleased to have collected this. It's meticulously done, and it's done by, I lost the name of the artist, but it's done by a New Mexican woman from somewhere in northern New Mexico. And she had a name for her business, and I would have bought another one of her things in a flash, but I lost track of her. So I've tried to breeze through this, and it's about time to end, but I will finish up with my newest nativity. Peter had a meeting a geophysical meeting in Hungary, and I found this the first morning when I walked the town, and this was a walkable town. By the end of the week, I walked every street. The first morning, though, I found in one delightful little shop this wonderful nativity. But I said, who would buy a nativity when you're a collector? And I guess now I need to think I'm a collector. Who would buy a nativity on the first morning when I'm going to be here for a week? So every day I went out, I walked more streets and more streets. I never saw another nativity. And on the fifth day, I said, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to buy that first nativity I saw on Monday morning. Well, I got lost and I never found it. But a week later, and the day before we left, we were in, we had traveled around to a couple other countries, and we came back to Budapest. And I said, one more try. And Peter was very patient, and he said, okay. And I went to the Budapest City Market, huge place. And after 2 hours, and I knew time was up, I walked, and right in front of me, smack at the next booth on the second floor, and they had balconies in two sections of the building, there was this nativity. I looked at it, I asked the price, I said, wrap it up. And all I can think of is that vendor probably was telling everybody he knew. There was this woman who came and snapped up in 4 minutes a nativity set. At any rate, I can't pronounce the name of the creative guy who did it. I think it was a male, and his last name was Kaposur. And he, I thought, made such a delightful thing. It's so ethnic. I mean, look at all those guys, all the three wise men, or Joseph, with their big dark mustaches. Look at their gifts. Look at those happy and wonderful animals. And look at Mary. Mary is wearing a babushka, and she has her hand on a scalloped raka with the baby Jesus in there. And guess what? I had a friend from Czechoslovakia in Los Alamos. Her husband made for their first child a raka that looked like that. It was even scalloped. And they kept it, when their kids were 40 or 50 or whatever years, they always kept that raka. I always saw it in the corner of one of their rooms. Well, folks, it's time to go. And I hope that this year, in my downsizing of my collection, I hate to be having to do it, but it's time to do it. It will be hard to part with all these friends. I have offered to donate most of my creches, except my Indian ones and my personal ones, to a very worthy cause, an old clinic that's been in downtown Santa Fe. It's the only free medical dental clinic in New Mexico, and they are building on St. Michael's Drive, and I hope that they can use it for a fundraiser. Thank you for letting me share my nativities. Have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you so much, Carol Ann and Susan. I see everybody clapping. We have a comment saying this has been a delightful gift for you guys to share your collections. Are there any questions?
We're off the hook.
All right. Well,